think of your heroes visually. Think of how they dress and how they talk or whatever jacket they wear. Let that be a part of what you want to do. There's a real power to that. You find yourself really going in that direction just from their jacket.
Yeah. Fred, thank you so much for joining us. When I see you on the late night show with Seth Meyers, I immediately start laughing. But I start laughing because of your just deadpan look and humor, which is kind of like a musician's humor that you brought into this act that you have. But I gotta tell you something, you play well, not only drums, but guitar. So I wanna kind of go back to the beginning of how did music first step into your life, and then how did you branch that into the insane humor that you're doing now?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Music, I was always drawn to the drums, and I might have been 8 or something like that, but for a couple of years I lived in Brazil. They would start listening to Brazilian music.
Absolutely, yeah.
My mom introduced me to Beatles records, and this is sort of after the Beatles, like they had already broken up.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard I'm the Walrus, that's Phil, I was just drawn to the drums right away. And so that just always stayed with me. As I got older and got into, The Who and bands like that, I was taking drum lessons. And
in Brazil?
No, so we were originally from New York.
Right.
Lived in Brazil for a couple of years.
Right.
Came back to New York. As I got older and got into high school and stuff, I got into punk rock. All the punk rock drummers really moved me.
Yeah.
Starting with Clem Burke.
Oh, fantastic.
And my favorite
Clash
drummer.
and Devo, right?
Devo, Alan Myers,
yeah.
all those drummers really taught me how to play the drums.
They were real pocket groove, energized drummers.
Energized and great use of toms, not as fills, but they incorporated them into the beat.
Yeah,
so they they kept it going, the toms going. That's kind of like what it was the very beginning of what drums were to me. No matter how much comedy I do, stand up and all that stuff, I approach it as I'm a drummer. Just as I walk up to the stage, even if there are no drums involved, I always feel like a drummer. And it made sense for when I was on Saturday Night Live, because I really do feel like drummers are sort of sketch players, The drums, you're trying to get attention, but you're in the back.
Yeah.
It's a really weird mix of look at me, don't look at me.
Yeah.
And I even in sketches, I was like, I wanted to be the drummer. In sketches, I never want to be like the main guy, even though there are some where I was like that. It felt best when it was a group.
So that position of the drummer is behind the band, but yet an extremely integral part of laying down the foundation of the music.
Well, I would say more than that, because the drummer, to me, in my opinion, is the best part of a band. It is the most demonstrative. There's like little cymbals, and it's a real, it's like juggling back there. So it's almost like the secret star of the band is always the drummer. And I think, there's our opinion of drummers, like you're a drummer and we're all drummers here, so we're like, hey, they're the best part of the band. But I think everyone in the back of their mind knows it. I think when you go to a show, even if you're not familiar with the band, your eyes just sort of go to that kit.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's just me. I think your eyes just go there. It's just something about where it is on the stage, all those, the look of a drum set. I think no matter who's up there, I think even if it's, the greatest guitar player in the world, as soon as you sit down, you just look at that, throne.
Absolutely. It's funny because last night the band Tower of Power on their 50th anniversary played here to 10,000 people. And they introduced all the different band members. When they got to David Garibaldi, it was the loudest applause.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is really kind of interesting how people perceive drums and the excitement of drums.
Yeah.
So you were taking lessons, private drum lessons?
So I took private drum lessons.
Yeah.
And then
do you remember who the teacher was at all? Or?
Oh yeah, Joe Martignetti.
Joe Martignetti, fantastic.
Yeah. Martignette, I think. It's like this weird spelling. But he used to come to my house, and he was one of the first people who sort of started changing my life, even about opinions. He just was very opinionated about things that, as a kid, I sort of started to admire the personality of drummers. There's something, it's just the way a musician speaks about politics, about life, about being on stage. Immediately, he really started showing me the way.
Fantastic.
And he also encouraged me to play other instruments. He was like, just play, play guitar, play other instruments, just to sort of just to be familiar with what a band is.
Excellent. So when did you start playing guitar?
Somewhere around there. I was somewhere in junior high school or something, maybe a little younger than that. I can't remember the year. But first was drums. That's like my instrument. And then guitar was sort of a little bit after.
Yeah.
And I never took the guitar seriously, which is great. You know, I like playing.
Yeah.
I love it, but it's actually more of a tool than anything else.
Yeah.
It's something for me to be on stage and to be able to talk while I'm playing and that kind of thing.
With the 8G band that you have, you'll play some guitar sometimes, right?
Originally, I was on guitar.
Yeah.
I don't even know why. I think it was a matter of like wanting to be different than the Tonight Show with Questlove.
Yeah.
I thought maybe just to change it up, I'll be up there with the guitar. And then within a couple of years, maybe even within a year, I wanted to play the drums instead.
Yeah. Were there music programs in the school system that you were involved with at all?
Oh,
Did that
yeah.
help out?
We had marching band and orchestra and all that stuff.
And you were involved with all that?
Yeah. Although I don't remember ever marching in a parade.
Yeah.
As much as I wanted to. In elementary school, I marched in a couple parades with the tenor drum. But I think in high school, it was more sort of orchestra atmosphere.
So that knowledge of being exposed to the orchestra or the concert band, that probably was a part of the development of you even opening maybe to different styles of music?
When you're young, I think you don't realize even that there's such a thing as different styles of music. I think you just look at the drum. You're like, oh, look at this thing. What's back there? Oh, is that a xylophone? You know, and you play and then you walk away from it and you sort of goof around with your friends. I think high school and elementary school is more about getting to know your friends and who likes the same music or what instrument do you like. And I think that was more of the link. Yeah.
So what happened now? Did you start to play with other musicians? Were you now jamming? And
I had my eye on being a famous punk rock drummer. That was all I ever wanted. And so my goal in every friendship was, how do we start a band? And so, we had a group of us, a bunch of friends. When everyone played, there was a couple of drummers, a couple of guitar players, a few bass players. I met my best friend in high school was Kenny Young, and he was really into hardcore punk. And I thought I was punk, but he was really punk. So where I was sort of more into new wave, he started showing me other bands like Husker Du and the Dead Kennedys and the Bad Brains, and things were much faster. And I really bonded with Kenny. I speak his name in this way because he passed away a couple years ago. So I'm very like, my link to my early days. But he was the one who like encouraged me to use timbales. So my favorite instrument on a kit is timbales. I love Tito Puente. I love the sound of timbales. And there was a band called Bow Wow Wow who used them in their kit.
In the kit, yeah.
Yeah, the kick drum, 2 timbales.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I think no hi-hat, but so I copied that and I just always had timbales. As I got older, I still used them and I just love timbales. How
great to incorporate that. And the timbales, which are tuned much higher, give a real kind of a sharp, higher pitch compared to the bass drum and the other toms, so that was a really good mixture.
Yeah, and it's sort of metallic sounding and it has like, I don't know what note it is, but I could hear a note in it. You know, like brang, 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 brang. There's something about it that, you can't help it. You just want to dance right away.
Trenchmouth, when did that come about?
I met this guy, Damon, in art school, and I wanted to form a band with him. We moved to Chicago. This is 1988, 89. And around 1990, we started getting serious about being in a band. And Trenchmouth I used timbales in that band too.
Yeah.
And that was very sort of post-punk, very frenetic, very busy. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad we toured like crazy. We played like crazy. We bonded.
So you toured throughout?
The country, yeah.
Really?
Oh, in a van, yeah. Sometimes I have a story in my head of like, I wasn't doing comedy yet and I was just, wasting my time. But now I realize it was actually very important. First of all, getting to know travel with instruments, audiences, getting to know other musicians.
Different people, different cultures, areas,
And other bands, and so now I really cherish that time.
Yeah.
I really cherish it, and I drummed a lot. Although, my God, being in your 20s is like, it's not, maybe for some people it's different, but my goal was to prove how fast I could play. So, as opposed to entertaining and just, making music that people can really enjoy, it was this Olympic look, odd timing, faster and faster. So it was a weird flexing of muscles than anything else. And,
Absolutely.
the whole band was doing it, and busy bass, and just like everything was very frenetic. But I did love that time. Now I look back, I'm like, because this is the 90s, and I just remember being in that van and traveling. It was great.
Were there other drummers that you were listening to or being influenced by at this point? Were you?
Oh, yes. I mean, copying. Straight up copying. Brendan Canty from Fugazi. 1997 or so, I really got into Janet Weiss from Sleater-Kinney, and people were just reinventing the drums. It was great. So where the 80s, people were already sort of turning things upside down, and a lot of tom patterns, a little bit of timbali, but something in the 90s, people were really scaling down their kits.
Yeah.
The most famous bands were these little
small
kits.
Yeah.
How great was that? That they were like, instead of going outward, they were going inward.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool to have a little bit of a vintagey, crappy look, for their kit, I'm saying. And then it was really great. People were just really Sonic Youth. I mean, it just goes on forever. Murph from Dinosaur Jr. Just
nice.
Heavy and embracing their skill, but really taking it all apart. The 90s was really great for drumming.
It's amazing the cycle, because in the 60s, we had that 4-piece kit.
Yeah.
Then the kits kind of got bigger. Then in the 90s, it came down again.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of come up again. But now we're starting to get back into smaller kits again now in 2020.
Yeah. Smaller kits, I'm noticing a lot of, there'll be sort of pads, electronic pads sort of on the left.
Yeah.
A couple of triggers. You'll see a couple of triggers here and there. Yeah. Early 2000s, I don't mean the teens, 20 to 2010, there was a lot of laptop.
Big time, yeah.
I don't see that as much anymore, but there was a bit of that going on.
Yeah. Which was crazy to incorporate that kind of technology. All of us had to kind of go through that stage. It's crazy.
I think it was more, for the look, like, hey, look, I'm really thinking. I noticed now, I think, or maybe this is a couple years ago, we're embracing weird symbols. A lot of 3 symbols on top of each other with stacks and little homemade looking things, pots and pans, just right here. I think that drummers now are, and this is a compliment, because of self-made videos, a lot of drummers are playing to just the video. So they'll video themselves and that's the show.
Yeah, that's the show.
I don't see them on tour.
Yeah.
And I enjoy these videos, but they're 2 minutes and they go, hey, I'm gonna do this song or whatever, and boom, and that's it.
And they put these on YouTube.
Yeah.
And some of them, I should probably say many of them, get millions of views. And that becomes the new, direction of how people are being showcased.
Yes.
With not playing with live bands, so to speak, but playing with themselves, on these tracks that they have put together. It's incredible.
Or no tracks. Sometimes it's just
drums,
just drumming. And I had to wrap my head around it, because at first, watching the videos, I'm like, why are they doing this? What, they're just playing? When's your show? And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm watching this whole video.
Yeah.
So right now, the math of it is there's a drummer playing and I'm enjoying it. The end. I'm not looking for their record or having to look. Yeah. That's the show. I love watching them play.
It kind of falls under the artistic development of where drums or instruments are going, where they can do something solo on drums and still attract a large amount of views.
Yes.
And still be exciting.
Yes.
Listen, what you did with, we watched Stand Up for Drummers on Netflix.
Yeah.
What you did there was you really kind of gave this sectional time of periods, how the drums changed and what they did. Is that research that you did? Where you discovered
a little bit, but there's a cheat to it in that, number one, I only do a little bit. I don't do like a whole song.
Right.
The other thing is I do the simplified version. So I'm coming at it from rock, pop, punk.
Yeah.
So my knowledge of how jazz was really played is very limited. So I just did a little bit of what it sounded like back then. But I certainly didn't go deeply into Latin music. I don't go deeply into jazz.
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily a cheat, because I watched it and I have many of my students watch it. And when we watched it, I'm serious, because it at least opens them up to a type of drumming that happened that gave them enough information for them to go and research more of it. And just to be aware of it, to have that information. I think that what you did was fantastic.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah,
I did do some research. There was a guy I saw who was doing impressions of 40s drum. I forgot his name, but I found him and I texted him. I was like, can you let me know what you did? And then I looked up some stuff online, and the stuff from the early part of the century is because of silent movies.
Yes.
Sound effects.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was good. I looked at some of the old kits. The 30s jazz was really hard for me because I tried to find it on, listen to it.
Yeah.
And I tried to find music, and it's so soft.
Yeah.
So I don't know what those drummers are doing. I think it was recorded poorly. So
it was one mic.
So they've lost all, I don't know what the kick is doing in a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it was in my car, I would sort of like look up 30s music on Sirius Radio. And it was everything, zing, 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 ding, ding, ding. And it sounds like a brush on a snare and cymbal.
Absolutely. And the bass drum, I mean, that's Krupa's era. At the time when swing music was 30s, was Benny Goodman and the Quartet.
Swing, that's what I was...
Swing music. It was swing music in the 30s. In the 40s, it became big band music. And that's when Basie and Ellington came out. So in the 30s, what Gene Krupa did, he was the first one to record bass drum in 1927, even on a microphone. So at that time, they only played 4 on the floor. And that was just to help the band, not for anyone to hear it other than the immediate band, to keep the band together. It's kind of interesting to hear how
but I lost it on the record. I don't hear it.
You can't hear it. You can't hear it. Okay. You can't hear it because it was just so soft. It was just for the band to hear. It didn't even reach the microphone, nevertheless reaching the audience. It never got that far out.
That's so funny. Because when you listen to it, it sounds like the drummer set up a kit and then just on the snare.
Absolutely. And it was amazing at the time. Buddy Rich, who I had gotten to know, I met him in 1971. He said that...
Oh, you met Buddy Rich? You know Buddy Rich?
I did. I met him for the last 16 years of his life. And it was just an amazing journey to experience this magical man. But he told me, he said, when they played with the big band back in the 30s and 40s, you couldn't hear the upright bass player. There was no amp. You've got an upright bass player, you got 3,000 people, you're not going to hear the guy. So Buddy said he just stood next to me to help me keep time, and I kept time on my bass drum, so I heard his time to help the band keep time. He said nobody really heard my bass drum other than just the band. So really what you captured in that Netflix was really fantastic.
Oh, thanks for saying
that. You got way more than you probably realized because it really is an educational tool to what was happening.
Great. I'll take it. But I'll always be curious about eras of drumming and different styles. Who knows what was going on in Africa or Eastern Europe? Who knows? I have no idea. But I'd like to find out.
That is fantastic. So how did the comedy thing come out of that? Because you've balanced both of them. Where did the comedy part of your career start?
Completely by accident. It was the craziest thing because, it's a real lesson on seeing the signs of life, what life is trying to say to you. Because I was like, I'm going to be a famous punk rock drummer. I wanted, for some reason, my eyes were set on Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was like, we're going to do it.
Chad Smith.
Yeah. I was like, that's the way to go. But it kept not happening. Toured like crazy. Bands would pass us by. Our friends, famous. They are, and by the way, I don't mean to use the word fame lightly. I just, that's the only way to put it.
Yeah.
Successful.
Yeah.
Record label, whatever.
Yeah.
Little by little, I started to see the dream sort of fade as I got older. I was like, I'm about 30 or whatever, early 30s. I'm like, hey, this is not going to look nice.
Yeah.
After a little while, for me.
Yeah.
All due respect to other people, for me, it's starting to not look good.
Yeah.
And I started doing these videos of me interviewing other musicians. This is at South by Southwest. I just did these interviews as different characters. A German guy, a blind person, just different characters. And then that video sort of started making the rounds. This is VHS time. And little by little, I started to get more jobs as a comedian.
Yeah.
There's a show called Reverb on HBO, and
so they found you through these videos.
Yeah, all luck. An owner of one of the clubs in LA passed it on to someone else, and all of a sudden, this is 1999, 1998. All of a sudden, I was showing up at clubs to just show the video of me interviewing band members, and it's just me as different characters and stuff. In a couple years, 2002, I was auditioning for SNL. So it was a decade of really struggling as a drummer, and then as soon as I started doing some comedy, things really opened up for me. So it's a life thing of life, like it's sort of giving you clues like, hey, this is the way you're supposed to go.
But there must have been something inside of you that had this comedic, deadpan, absurd recipe that was going on inside
Oh
of you.
yeah, my drumming heroes were kind of comedians anyway. So all this stuff is like, as I look back, it makes perfect sense, because early on, one of my biggest heroes was Keith Moon, and who dressed up as characters and did all these
capes,
things.
everything.
Capes and uniforms and dressed up like the Queen. Even though he's not a drummer, David Byrne, Mark Mothersbaugh, these people had an element of comedy in there. All my heroes were kind of doing this kind of thing anyway. And Ringo had a lot of personality in that regard, you know.
It's kind of amazing. Where did Jan Hanneman come from? Because I watched with my son Dominic, and we're looking at this thing, and we're howling at this because as a musician and a drummer, just how you delivered it was just so great.
Thank you. It was just from going to music stores. You go to a drum shop, and there's this sort of carousel of DVDs of instructional videos.
Right.
And I was like, it's people I hadn't heard of, but they're clearly making a living showing people how to play the drums. So I got kind of obsessed with them, because these videos are, you know, a full hour
some of these videos.
No, we all love them. No disrespect.
Absolutely.
But what
funny.
form of music is it? And because it's also a style of music that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's like drumming music for drummers.
Yeah.
And then show a close-up of the foot and a close-up of, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And then look at the camera and say, now for the other part of, you know, now I'm going to show you, this is what I do now. Close up, close up, close up. And now, so it's its own art form.
Yeah.
No one, I actually don't even think people are really learning from them in the way that you would think. And,
The drummers many times think that they're teaching something.
yeah.
But when you explained the flam, then the rest.
Yeah.
And the flam, then the rest. I laugh because I have seen that in the course of my travels. And I just said, what kind of a mind would look at that? You have such a unique observation on life and the music and drumming that you're bringing this together, which is really, really very talented.
Well, another way to look at it is that you're my core audience. I mean, you know, I made this for a specific type of audience, just like those DVDs. Ironically, that is my audience. The comedy for it is for people like you and everyone here, which is great. That's, you know, that kind of thing is a very safe zone for me. I know, I'm like, look, it's almost like meeting up with old friends who I don't know. I'm like, come on, guys, let's all talk about what are these DVDs.
So where did the writing come in? Because I know you're doing some writing with Bill Hader and Seth Meyers. Where did all this, where'd that skill come in?
That's SNL. So SNL, I auditioned as Felicito with Timbales. That's a character I did that was like a Tito Puente type character. But when you go to SNL, they throw you in.
Yeah.
So you have to write sketches, and they don't say to you, hey, this is how a sketch is written, and we really believe in you, and good luck, and let us know how we can help you. If you'd like to be on TV, write something
Make it happen.
3 minutes long, and here's a computer. Just for survival skills, you just start writing, and you start and trying to. It's very much like music, and it's like doing a gig. It's like doing a song. It's like, even though I didn't have comedy training, music training helped me out.
That's a very powerful line. You know, the people that are watching this, that's a very important point, that the musical training and disciplines that came from that can be brought to different areas of life.
Oh, yes. I mean, just trust your brain anyway, because I, at the time, didn't think, oh, this is just like music. It's even more panicky than that, like, ugh. And all of a sudden your brain goes, well, I remember that, you know, that songs are 3 minutes, so that's got to, you know, there's a little hook in it, and that muscle was already in place, and then also part of it was also that I loved Saturday Night Live. I watched it all the time.
Grew up with this,
Interestingly, it's the music acts that drew me into it. I mean, I remember when Blondie was on, and Lorne Michaels, by the way, who created the show, is a very musical person. He's a music fan. He booked a lot of those bands with that sort of punk rock mind, I think. I don't know if he realizes it, but I'm like, bringing all these bands in is like, that's someone who loves music.
Oh, he loves Christine Ullman, who I have interviewed here, who sings on Saturday Night Live in between the shows.
Oh, yeah. I know her.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
She sang at Lorne Michaels' wedding, and it was at his wedding he heard her and said, I want her with Saturday Night Live. So I think he has a certain element musically that he gets it.
Yes. And also he's friends with a lot of musicians. He is a real music fan. He really is.
Are any of the people that you've written with also musicians too? Bill Hader, is he involved with music?
Bill's a bass player. And
interesting.
Yeah, he doesn't think so. But he plays bass on all the, I did a lot of fake bands on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I put him on bass and he's like, yeah, I used to kind of play bass. And then I'm like
him too.
You're playing the song. You're playing the song. Why do you think that that's not playing? That's it. And then Seth Meyers is a huge music fan. He wrote a lot of the sketches that I sometimes get credit for. That, where
really?
It seems like my own invention, but Seth came up with a lot of those characters. He's a real music fan.
Well, look at the people that you're associated with in this creative world of music and writing and producing, and this must be an incredible surrounding of just creativity.
It is literally my dreams come true. All the dreams I had, I mentioned leader Kinney earlier. I used to love that band. Then I grew in a couple years to working with Carrie Brownstein, one of my favorite guitar players, on a comedy show. I meet all my heroes. I play music with my heroes.
Yeah.
I played music with, now it sounds like I'm bragging. I played with The Clash. I don't mean it like that. I mean the miracle of being alive is that to know Clem Burke, to have met Ringo,
incredible.
It makes me think that life is an amazing gift. That's like, what do you dream of? I don't know, and then I list them and then they go, well, here you go. Here's Saturday Night Live and here's all your favorite drummers and musicians. Can you imagine meeting a Beatle?
Oh, that in alone, just what the influence that the Beatles had to every musician. I was 10 years old when they played on the Ed Sullivan Show, February 9th of 1964.
Yeah.
And that impact is what got me involved in playing. So the fact that you have sat down with Ringo and had that relationship, this is so incredible. This is music culture at its highest.
Yeah.
So there may be a book inside of you somewhere at some point where you can log all this down and tell your story.
The problem is that there are so many books of people telling their stories that I worry that it's just going to be, everyone, and we all think we're special, but I think there's a version. Because Ringo put out a photo book, which I thought, that's a good way in.
Yeah.
I think what I'd like to do is a fake drum instruction book. And somewhere in there we can try to make that. My wish is that someone will pick it up and get mad and go like, this is wrong. Something that someone can get mad about. Like, that's not,
It really would be something that would be so entertaining for us in the music industry to kind of laugh at ourselves and have fun at the fact that we are a little bit nerdy as we're learning this instrument.
Yes. It's a very specific kind of nerd too, because it doesn't look like the usual nerd.
Yeah.
Because walking around NAMM, it's just like...
It's a cool nerd.
It's a cool nerd. There's a real uniform. Yeah. I saw similarities in how people dress, and it's pretty funny. This
is an eye-opener. Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it. A lot of black t-shirts, I'm wearing one on, it's a black t-shirt, but there's a lot of black t-shirts going on and little touches of, flair and a little couple things, but basically just a lot of black.
That's fantastic. Tell me about the HE Band.
Yeah, so we were trying to come up with a name, and one of the producers of the show was just like, just say HE Band, keep it simple, no thinking.
What is it like playing on the show? Because you've got a specific, I had gone by with my son to see the show, Eric Liederman, who was a fantastic person himself. We came by to watch the show and see it, and you could really see the timing and how everything has to happen. It's a pretty fine-tuned machine. Yeah,
well, my idea for it was Lauren's idea. Yeah. First of all, they were going to do a DJ maybe. First they were going to do no music. And then it was going to be a DJ, and then Lauren came up with the idea, and he approached me and said, do you want to curate a band? I thought, how cool would it be if it was 90s punk, 90s alternative? Because the age is, where Johnny Carson had a jazz band.
Yeah.
90s alternative, I think, is what
would have been. Yeah.
So let's go that direction. So these were friends of mine. Two guys from Les Savy Fav, Eli from Girls Against Boys, bands I've toured with. They live in New York. They're of the right age where they've got kids and they don't want to go on tour anymore. So this is
perfect.
Love their playing, and I love their place in life. And because I wanted to play guitar, we auditioned a drummer, Kim Thompson, brilliant drummer.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
I saw her play with Beyonce originally.
Yeah.
So that was the band at first, and I was in the band. You know, I don't know what Lauren meant by curate, but I was like, I guess I'll be in it. I'm friends with Seth, so it worked out great. And then I switched to drums, and we got Marnie Stern on guitar. Old friend of mine, same thing.
Great player.
Great player. She does a lot of sort of shredding, kind of tapping.
Yeah.
She's great, and then that's the band now. That's like, and so we when I'm away, we have fill-in drummers. We just practice during the day, write songs. Yeah. It's cheaper to come up with our own songs,
right?
So we don't have to pay for like covers and stuff.
Right.
I'm very concerned about budget. And then we just practice. They're instrumentals. They're a minute long.
Yeah. 2
parts. We used to have different parts to it, and you know, it was easier to just like have a couple parts, go back and forth. And they're pretty much 4/4.
Yeah.
And we keep it simple because we're not the stars of the show.
That's what you need. Just play the music so you can have some entertainment there to bring Seth to the place that he needs to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not show-off land. It's just keep it simple, a little dreamy. Some of the music's a little, so just to keep it a little positive. We try to keep it in major keys and just a little up energy.
Yeah.
That's it. And we just write them on the spot. There's, you know, hey, there's 4 commercial breaks. Here's commercial break 1. Commercial break 2. You know, it just keep it simple, and we all get along. We record them during the day. We play it back when we're on stage, right before we play it. Oh yeah, that's how it goes. And we'll be right back, and then we just play it. And the endings are super weird because it's all camera moves.
You don't know where it's going to end.
Yeah. The stage manager isn't like, oh, here's the end of the 4th measure. He's just like, you're done.
Now.
That's the part that's always weird.
But again, like a musician, you have to know how to react and how to be on the spot in the moment.
Yeah, and to make it obvious and convincing.
Yeah.
So wherever we are, this is where I mean to end. Just very sort of like, now we stop.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
I like the fact that you said you were very aware of cost and budget. You've got to be aware of how this all works, and even how you run your own business. How do you manage all of this? Here you're flying back from New York to LA, you're doing some comedy stuff, you're playing the drums. How do you manage all of this?
That's a very good question. You know, I have a business manager, I have an accountant. Mm-hmm. My method, I'm not saying this is the right method. I'm not saying this is right. Well, I'm gonna say a couple things. My one formula that's worked for me so far is stay busy.
Yeah.
Right? So number 1, I'm a little bit of a workaholic, but I'm like, play. Got asked to, you know, host this thing, go do it. Yes.
That was the name event, you host, you did great, yeah.
Thank you. But everything is go, stand up, go. TV show, movie, whatever it is. Big gigs, little gigs. Now, someone else handles my money. I can't keep track of things.
Yeah.
Hopefully things, you know, so far it's worked out great. So far it's worked out great.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta say, I don't cut corners. I want things to look good. I want you know, when I travel, I want it to be nice. So I really do try to surround myself with good things, smart people, and I just keep moving forward. So I wish I could say to you, no, man,
But this works for you.
This works for me.
Yeah.
I just keep busy. Someone else handles all the money stuff, but I've been with them a long time. So far, so good.
So there's trust and there's understanding, and that's great.
It's great, but you know, I watch documentaries and I watch stuff where people have gone broke. I'm not delusional. I'm in a place in my life, you know, I don't have kids, so maybe that's saving me a little money.
Yeah. That's saving you a lot of money.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't indulge in too many things that I don't have a hobby that's expensive.
Right.
So this is. I'm sorry to make this answer so long.
Yeah.
It's just not a simple answer, but it's a great question.
Well, it's an interesting point because I want the audience to understand that, you know, you are conscious of it, you're working on different things, and you're maintaining control over your career as you're building it and doing it. Sometimes it's hard to do all of it, but you've got to juggle, you know, we're spinning plates is what we're doing. You know?
Yes.
We're keeping the plates up on the air.
You know, I hate describing it this way, but I'm also an artist.
Yeah.
So it's worked for me of being like, oh, I don't know, you know, and it's worked.
Yeah.
It's worked. And the one thing that I will say is this keeping busy is the part that I think that's helped my financial situation. Where I'm like, Mike Watt, the bass player, with the Minutemen, his tour dates used to be back to back. Because he said, if you're not playing, you're paying. So that's the zone where I'm like, I just keep those days filled. Because I'm lucky. I'm lucky if I'm making art for a living, fill those days.
Well, it's luck, but you're putting in hard work. You are putting the time to write, to think, to be a part on stage. There's a lot that you're doing. Traveling, you're putting in the dues.
Thanks. I would hope so. Yeah. I mean, the people who I admired growing up, I want to do what they did. I want to contribute to society. I want to make things for everybody.
Yeah.
Beck is another one. Prince. These people who just made stuff. It's so utopian, just as a gift to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
They made our lives better, or make our lives better. So I want to do the same thing.
You're on that path. We have these younger, next generation kids that watch these interviews. And in closing, what would you say to this next generation if they were to follow their dream? And if they were to follow the guidance of maybe how their dream might change, what would you say to them to give them some advice on how they can achieve the hopes and dreams they may have?
Think of your heroes visually. Think of how they dress and how they talk, or whatever jacket they wear. Let that be a part of what you want to do, so that you have like a visual goal. And by the way, if you can't see, I mean it, just picture in your mind the sound of their essence of what they are.
Mental picture, yeah.
A mental picture. Don't underestimate that. Where it's not just their records, but there's something as you're on a train or in a car, something about picturing my heroes. That kind of keeps you going too. It's not just the work that they do, but also their essence. Just think of that as a sort of go towards that.
Yeah.
So, there's a real power to that. You find yourself really going in that direction just from their jacket.
Yeah.
Like, this is a jacket that so-and-so would wear, And it sounds like light, but I'm just saying that like some stuff can be light too. Some stuff can be goofy, some stuff can be silly for your goals. It's okay to John Waters was a hero of mine when I was growing up, and there's something about his little mustache that I was like, that's something to follow,
Great advice. And I got to tell you something. I am very impressed with your humility, your willingness to be honest and open, and you are extremely talented at many levels.
Wow.
So, keeping all of that going is what you're doing. You bring happiness and joy to millions of people. We watch the show, you're playing drums, you do the deadpan with Seth, it's fantastic. We watch the different shows that you do in the movies, the TV shows. You're lighting up a world that really needs more people like you to give us this light. So I thank you for lighting us all up. You have done great.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.